Love you. So, as he said, it's my first time getting up in front of a church and speaking. And I don't do much public speaking as it is, so a little bit nerve-wracking on that front. But I know God will be with me, and He'll see me through this. Today, it's kind of funny, we're talking about me being nervous and stuff. I want to talk about courage. Every day, well, most of people, and every day there's stuff that we're nervous about, scared, we face problems every day. And a lot of times, even in my life, my family's life, we sit back and we're always stressed out about what to do, how to do it. You know, we tend to look into ourselves for the answer, because when things get hard, sometimes we forget that God's there for us. And God gives us the courage, and He gives us the strength to pull through all of our problems. And it comes with us that we got to have faith to trust in Him and to hand Him our problems, and He'll take care of us. Psalms 56:3. There's the verse, "What time I am afraid, I will trust in Thee." Pretty much simply stated that in times that I'm afraid and I need help, and I turn to God. I know He's there. Bear with me as I look up here. I'm kind of new school, so I got a little bit of technology on my side. I put all the notes on my phone here. All right, I'm going to start with reading, the story of David and Goliath. It's probably the most famous story in the book, especially among the children and my kids. They love hearing that story. In the story of David and Goliath, David is first told as a shepherd and the youngest of 8 boys in 1 Samuel 16, when he was anointed the new king of Israel by Samuel. David's encounter with Goliath, a giant, is found in 1 Samuel 17. Goliath was a Philistine warrior who was fighting against the Israelites and stood about 18 feet, 6 inches tall, so huge man, very big. He challenged the Israelites to send a man to fight him, saying that if he was defeated, the Philistines would be servants to the Israelites. One day, David's father sent him to take food to the 3 oldest brothers who were serving in Saul's army, fighting against the Philistines. David saw how afraid the men were of Goliath and asked who of these heathen Philistines was shamed Israel and defiled the armies of the living God. David's brother heard this and became mad at him and told him to go home and to tend to their sheep. David responded by asking what he had done, and if there was not a cause, referring to the importance of the matter that someone do something. Soon King Saul heard of David's words and sent for him. David told Saul he would fight against Goliath, but was told that he was nothing more than a boy. David responded by telling of the wild animals he had killed while tending to the sheep, and how he would do the same to the giant. King Saul then agreed to send David to fight. David refused to wear the king's armor and instead chose to go with nothing but a staff and a sling. David chose 5 smooth stones from a brook and went up to confront Goliath. Goliath belittled David and insulted that the Israelites had sent a small boy to fight. Goliath threatened to kill David and feed him to the birds and animals. But David replied that although Goliath threatened him with a sword and a spear, he was going to fight Goliath in the name of the Lord and the God of the armies of Israel, who Goliath defiled. David then took a stone and slang it at the giant using his sling and hit the giant in the forehead. The stone killed the giant, and David took the giant's sword and cut off his head. Upon seeing this, the Philistines fled. So here we got a little bitty guy, they said small in stature, young boy, fighting Goliath, a giant, a guy that the whole army, Saul's army, was afraid of, did not want to step up and face. And not only did David have the courage to step up and fight him, he didn't use any armor or anything of protection but God's protection. He had faith in God, and God gave him the courage and looked over him as he slain Goliath and won the war, won the battle there. So as we go a little bit farther looking into courage, Christian courage is a willingness to say and do the right thing regardless of the earthly cost. Because God's promises to help you and save you on the account of Christ. An act takes courage if it will likely be painful. The pain may be physical, as in war, or like some kind of like military, like rescue operation or something like that. Or the pain may be mental, as in confrontation or controversy. Courage is indispensable for both spreading and preserving the truth of Christ. Jesus promised that spreading the gospel would meet resistance. Then shall they deliver, Matthew 24, verse 9, states that, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then Paul warned, even in the church, faithfulness to the truth would be a war. In Acts 20, verses 29 through 30, said, for I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. Also of your own selves shall a man arise, speaking perverse things to draw disciples after them. Therefore, true evangelisms, true teaching will take courage. Running from resistance in evangelism or teaching dishonors Christ. There's a kind of cowardness that tells only the truths that are safe to tell. Something that I looked up and it kind of flashed before me not too long ago was Martin Luther King's Day in school, and my oldest son was bringing papers home, studying Martin Luther King. They're doing like little projects and stuff in school, and I read a lot of things. And then as I was studying for this, preparing for this kind of just flashed above my mind. So Martin Luther King puts it like this. I think he puts it best. If I profess with the loudest voice and the clearest exposition every portion of the truth of God except precisely that little point which the world and the devil are at the moment attacking, I am confessing Christ. However boldly I may be professing Christ, where the battle rages, there the loyalty of the soldier is proved, and to be steady on all the battlefields, besides is mere flight and disgrace if he flinches at that point. But pretty much he's saying that it doesn't matter how loud you sing or how boisterous you are. In front, like right now, speaking in front of the church, this is probably the easiest place to speak about God. Everybody accepts you. Everybody's going to, take the word into God and, support you. It's the days out there, like my son went to school the other day, telling kids that didn't know God, telling them about God. And that's the type of courage that Martin Luther King was talking about and the Bible was talking about. That courage to where you're faced with people that don't believe in God or don't believe in what we believe in and don't know His words. It takes that courage to speak up, to speak out. God wants us to do that. He wants us to spread His word. He wants us to spread His teachings. And that takes a lot of courage. And it's kind of funny being a parent. You have kids, and you're the protector. You're the provider. You're the one that's supposed to be teaching them. But in a lot of ways, things that you talk to them about every day, you find that you end up learning a lot more from them than you teach them. And that's one of the biggest things. Like I was saying, my son, he just got saved the night before. We lay there in bed. He was crying and telling us, that he felt God touch his heart, and that the night before that he went to bed crying, and he didn't know why, but he was happy. And the next day at school, the same thing and stuff. So we sat down and talked and had a conversation about it. And then that night he told me he was saved. The next morning he got up, went to school, and first thing he came back home, we picked him up. He's like, "Dad, guess what?" I was like, "What, buddy?" He said, "I had a friend named Isaiah at school, and I told him about God, and he didn't know about God." He said, "You believe that?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Not everybody understands God. That's what we're supposed to be doing, spread the word." And he said, "Well, I told him about him. I told him about God." And he said, and he got really interested and was like, thought it was really cool, so he started telling his friends. So, just by one kid being saved and going to school, spreading the word, take it for granted, especially in our home and our family, that there's a lot of kids out there that don't know about God because their family don't take them to church, never open the Bible, they don't know about it. So just by like my son going to school and just opening his mouth up and talking about God, having the courage to, knowing that other kids might make fun of him or think that he's weak or not cool because he's speaking up about God, just having the courage at his age to do that, it made me look at myself kind of, in shame. Like I need to do more. And that's one of the real reasons I'm up here. I put it off for a while, and I was scared and nervous, stuff like that. But I'm thinking if he has the courage to go to school and speak up and do that, then I need to have the courage to get up here and do this. I feel like God was kind of just give me that nudge to get up there. I went through a lot of things that I wanted to talk about before I got up here, before today. I was going back and forth of what I needed to say, and I talked to my father, and he was just like, "Well, God will put it in your heart. You'll know what you need to talk about because God will put it in your heart." And so that day when all that happened, it was kind of like a smack in the face. Like, hey, this is what I want you to talk about. This is what I want you to speak up about. So moving on here a little bit, we're going to do another story in the Bible. It's about the Israelites again. The Israelites weren't always good at showing courage. In fact, sometimes they flat out refused to listen to God. But when it came to taking over a city called Jericho, courage was a necessity. Jericho was a powerful city with a huge wall surrounding it. This super strong wall meant that the city was heavily protected and would be really hard to conquer. But God promised the Israelites that one day Jericho would be theirs. They would have to be brave. They would have to trust his plan, but God's plan didn't involve lining up for battle like they were used to doing. Instead, God told them to walk around the city wall once a day for 6 days in a row. I'm sure if I had been an Israelite back then, I would have thought this was a terrible plan. What good is walking going to do? What good is walking going to do anyway? But despite those questions, the Israelites trusted God and trusted in his promise. For 6 days they walked. Then on day 7, God told them to walk around the city 7 times. Each lap, God had the priestess blow their trumpets like crazy. And on the 7th lap, the army gave a huge shout. I'm sure the people inside of Jericho's walls thought those marching trumpet blowers and shouters were a bunch of crazy people. But the Israelites knew that God would keep his promise that Jericho would be theirs. And sure enough, as they shouted, the city wall started to crumble. The Israelites took the city just as God had promised. They chose to trust in him and have the courage to follow his plan. And at the end of the day, the Israelites knew that no one but God could have caused those walls to come down. Just like the Israelites, you can be brave because God keeps his promise. When you know the right thing to do, but are afraid to be the only one, remember God promises to be with you. When you need to tell the truth about something you've done wrong, remember God promised that telling the truth is always best. Just remember you can be brave because God keeps his promises, and you'll be the most courageous person in the room. And so, just in closing real quick, I know I didn't take up all the time. It was, like I said, it's the first time doing this, so it was kind of me stumbling through it, trying to get a time limit down. But courage is something, well, fear, first of all, fear is something that we're not born with. God did not instill fear in us. God instilled courage in us. and endurance, and most importantly, we just have to trust Him and have faith in Him. And I know my life's gotten a lot easier since then. Back when I was younger, running around, pretty much trusting in myself and my own ways. It was always how am I going to do this? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I can make this happen. And after I was saved and realized that I didn't have that power, that everything that I tried to do on my own crumbled. It always backfired, it always failed, it always messed up. I ended up falling on my face. And every time I trusted in the Lord, and I had the courage to speak up for Him, and had the courage to turn all my problems over to Him, things resolved themselves a lot nicer and a lot neater. I've been blessed to have the things that I had, the upbringing I have from my family, from my parents to my grandparents, to getting married to my wife, and having a Christian wife, and raising our kids in a Christian home, having my son saved at such a young age. God continues to bless me and bless me and bless me. So from this thing, I've put my faith in God, and now it's time to have the courage to start speaking up and speaking out, and doing more things like this and getting more involved. And God has continued to show me that He has my back and that He'll never let me fall, that He's always there for me. And so I think me and everybody else, we need to do the same for God. We need to speak up for Him. We need to have His back. A lot of things in this country nowadays have gone to the sinners, to be honest with you. All the ads you see on TV from the porn industry being so lucrative, from stuff out that you hear out west from, all the transgender and lesbian laws and all the stuff going on like that. I just seen the news on the story last night about a city in San Francisco having starting a safe stick place, so where heroin addicts can go and shoot up in a safe place. It seems like God's getting lost in America, and sin is becoming acceptable. And not only acceptable, now some of our officials are starting to embrace it and allow it and encourage it. You set up places like that people that were trying to battle a drug epidemic, and you're letting people come in and do drugs for free and no consequences and stuff like that. So I think it's time, for people like me that have been quiet for so long, that's had faith for so long, to finally speak up and start spreading the word and start getting things out there. It's on us to have the courage to do those type of things. And that's all I have for today. Thank you. That's yours.